Hi there! So today we're going to talk about beginner. I'm having troubles today. We're talking about plants for beginners and how to get into owning your own plants and letting those plants thrive, and you're going to do so well, and you do not have a black thumb, because I don't believe in that. I think everybody can actually take care of a plant. Maybe you bought the wrong plant before and gave it the wrong care. Which is often the case, because if you talk to even somebody working at, like, let's say Walmart, you're buying some little succulent from there, they might tell you to water it every day. They don't need water every day. So it depends on who you're talking to for information. So don't think that you can't ever own a plant because they'll never do well in your care. Just try out different plants. Look up their care, first of all, because that will make your life so much easier than trying to guess what it needs. And see where things go, and if it doesn't work out, then try a different plant. But yeah, so I'm just going to talk about some beginner plants that are fairly easy. So pothos in the Marble Queen variety. So pothos in general is supposed to be kind of an easier plant to take care of. However, it's also known as, I think, a money plant to certain cultures. I personally find the Marble Queen variety to be the easiest to take care of, and satin pothos is pretty easy, but Marble Queen pothos grows really quickly. You need to water it like every 2 weeks, so not significant at all. It's not like you need to be watering it every day. Most plants you do not need to water every day, by the way. So lighting. You can put pothos in a lower light situation. Now, if you're getting the Marble Queen variety, the variegation will essentially disappear and it'll revert to being just a solid green leaf. But it's not a big deal if it reverts back to green. It's still a lovely plant. The more light you give it, the more variegation it has. Sometimes it can almost have essentially a white leaf, which isn't necessarily good for the plant anyways. So keeping it in a kind of like a medium light situation, I think, is best. And then next would be ZZ plants. ZZ plants are everybody's like beginner plant. They're very easy to take care of because they don't need a lot of water. They need water about once a month, if even that. They are easy to overwater, so definitely give it less water than more water. And they can also tolerate low light. They prefer high light, but they can tolerate low light. Sansevierias, also known as snake plants, they do well in high light. However, they can tolerate low light as well, and they would need water about once a month, if even that. So you do not need to be watering them every day because that will kill them. Now, cactuses and succulents. So cactuses and succulents actually need brighter light. They cannot tolerate low light, so do not put them in low light. And they also need water about about once a month to once every like couple months. They definitely do not need a lot of water. They are very easy to overwater. So plants to not get is Fittonias, ferns, calatheas, and carnivorous plants. Now, the only reason I tell you to not get these is because they are very dramatic. Turn it on, and as you can see, it just says zeros on here. Basically, you stick this straight in the pot, and it goes all the way to the bottom. If it has a lot of moisture, it'll tell you a higher reading. So it might say 6, I might say 3, it might say 9. It really just depends on the plant. I like using this. I found it very effective, and I wish I had this as a beginner because the methods that I did as a beginner didn't work for me. That's kind of how I killed some plants. So I'm going to talk about it. So the 3 different methods I hear people use that I personally don't think are the greatest methods, however, it works really well for some people, is people saying just look at the soil on the top. When the soil on the top is dry, water your plants. Not every plant is going to like that. And now the main issue I have with all of these methods, by the way, is that the root system can often gather water and then it rots the roots. So If you let your plant completely dry out, they're fine. However, let's say the roots are still a little bit wet and then you add more water, you're overwatering. So that's why I find this to be very effective, because you stick it in and then you can see how much like moisture is at the bottom, and then you can kind of gauge whether or not to water that day. Maybe you're gonna water the next day, maybe you're gonna water in 2 days. So I do find this really effective. So yeah, people will say like, just see if the soil on top is dry and then give your plant a good watering. I don't agree with that. That's probably the worst method that I know. Then some people will stick their finger in the pot and feel how wet the soil is. Depending on the plant, you can't really get your finger to the bottom. You're only going to get it as far as your finger goes. I have kind of stubby little fingers. So I put my finger in and then sometimes it'll feel dry, but the roots are soaking wet. So I don't really like that method either. And the last method is picking up the pot and feeling how heavy it is. If it's very heavy, then it most likely is very wet. However, if it's light, then it's probably very dry. That works really well actually for a lot of people if you know how heavy your pots are. So if you have a pot that's clay, it might be a bit more difficult because the pots in general are a little bit heavier. However, if you keep everything in a plastic pot or a light metal pot, then it might actually be an effective method for you. Okay, lighting. Depends on the plant, really. So the only thing I can say is most plants tend to like light, or like really like highlight. I keep all my plants under a grow light for the most part. I find they thrive under a grow light. There's certain ones that maybe don't prefer it as much as others, but for the most part, most of my plants like love the grow light. And the only reason I keep this is because I have a north facing window in my room, so I don't get a lot of light, so I'd rather have a grow light than, you know, relying on the sun. Especially I live in Canada, like when does the sun appear? Not often. So well, not in winter at least. In summer it's fine, but in winter I don't get the sun, so I definitely recommend a grow light. However, if you're new into plants, just kind of gauge how much light your room is getting. If it's only getting like an hour of sunlight a day, you might want a lower light tolerating, is that even a word? I don't know. A plant that tolerates low light, you might prefer that instead, due to the fact that it'll actually survive in that. Whereas if your room is like all day sunny, you could get like a cactus or a succulent or something that needs brighter light, and it will do so well. Flowers don't last forever. Keep that in your minds, folks. So a lot of people I know buy plants because they have some cute little flower on it and they're just like, I love this, she's looking beautiful. And then all of a sudden the flower dies and then they're like, I killed the plant. You did not kill the plant. The plant's still alive. Flowers do not last forever. They typically last a couple months, 2-3 months. Depends on the plant. There's some plants that their flowers do continuously bloom. Just I don't find it's actually that many plants that do that. Normally the flowers do die off, you're deadheading a lot. And even if it does continuously bloom, it's typically like the bloom will die off and a new bloom will come up. So you have to deadhead your plants a lot, and that means just picking out the dead flowers. Kind of sounds weird. It's a weird term. So yeah, I don't really like flowering plants. I have a jasmine that just randomly likes to flower when it pleases, and it just creates a whole lot of mess. And yeah, but if you're buying a plant only because you like the flowers and you hate the foliage, I wouldn't recommend it, because you're not going to like that plant long term, especially if the flower only comes back once a year, because then the flower will die after 2-3 months of having it, maybe even less, because if it was at a greenhouse for a while, it might have already been blooming for a while. And so then the flower dies off, then you have to deal with this like ugly plant that you don't like, and it's just going to sit there and you're not going to be happy with it. So just keep that in mind. Orchids also, like, they come back every year. They only last like 2-3 months, so don't expect them to just have their flowers forever. They will die off. Bugs. No one likes bugs on their plants. I don't know what's wrong with me today. A lot is wrong with me every day. I don't know why I said that. So, bugs. They're our enemy for the most part. There's some bugs that are okay. If you got springtails, they're actually just eating decaying matter in your plants. Good for them. Happy for them. I hope they thrive. And yeah, other than that, most of them are bad. I will insert pictures of all the plants, the bugs. You might be a little grossed out. If you don't like bugs, skip ahead, you know? Just but it's good to know these, especially if you have plants. So that's where I'm going to get into a deep topic, a sensitive topic actually right now. Quarantine. Now, I'm not talking about what's going on in this world right now. I am talking about you need to quarantine your freaking plants. When you bring a plant home, you don't know what it has, what disease, which bugs, which nastiness it has. So you need to quarantine that plant in a different room for a couple weeks, I would recommend, and then checking it for bugs or anything weird that you notice on it. Because if that plant has bugs, some of these bugs are ruthless. They will destroy everything and they breed like crazy. So I had a thrip infestation where it destroyed majority of my plants. Not majority, I lied. Okay, it destroyed like 10 plants. I had to throw them all in the garbage because the infestation was so bad. So I really recommend quarantining. I'm really bad at it. Don't do what I do. Do what I say. Make sure to quarantine them, and then you can introduce them to all your pals in your room or wherever you're going to keep them. And I do recommend just giving them a little insecticidal spray when they come into the house. You don't have to do this. I just find it's like a good preventative measure. It makes me feel better about myself. Makes my self-worth go up. Next would be Spider-Ban is the insecticidal soap type thing I use. It's not even an insecticidal soap. It is technically for house spiders, I believe. I don't know. But somebody told me it works for thrips. Thrips are nearly impossible to get rid of, but this freaking thing got rid of them. It was just like, goodbye. And when I said I threw out 10 plants, they were the heavily infested plants. However, the ones that had just a couple on it, it got rid of them. And I was like so happy because I didn't have to throw out all my plants, because at first I was just going to throw out every single plant I have. But yeah, so I definitely recommend Spider-Ban. And lastly, what should you pot your plants in? I am the biggest fan of clay pots. I stan clay pots. They have drainage holes, so it's harder to overwater. Just a little rundown, actually. Okay, wait, first. I'm getting a little too excited. So when you're repotting your plant, it's gonna come in a pot from the nursery. They don't just hand you. I don't know why I said that. Yes, they just hand you a plant with no pot. The roots just flowing out. No, it's gonna be in a pot. Let's say it was a 3-inch pot. When sizing up, only size up about 1 to 2 inches, preferably 1 inch. Giving your plants too much room, because some people will be like, well, I want this plant to grow huge, so I'll put this like little baby in like this big pot that's like 10 inches. It will not do well, and it's so much easier to overwater, and the soil just stays soaking wet, and it's just, they don't need, but they like to have a more fitted pot. Do you want them to be severely root bound? No. Actually, there's some plants that do like to be root bound, but for the most part, potting up 1 inch. Anyways, this is a 1-inch pot. As you can see, it has a drainage hole. Why do we recommend drainage holes? Well, when you're watering, I water my plants until I see water come out the bottom into the plastic tray, and then I know to stop. Whereas when you have a ceramic pot or a metal or whatever type of pot and it has no holes at the bottom, then you're gonna water it, and when do you know that you've watered too much? You don't. It's guessing. It's a guessing game. Some people are really good at it because they're kind of an underwaterer, which is a lot better than being an overwaterer. I don't even know if these are words. But yeah, so I would say definitely get something with a drainage hole, especially if you're new to plants.